And even if there is a delay, I think it's still a question for the legislature of weighing that versus ceding some of your authority to the administration, and keeping in mind that these particular projects aren't necessarily urgent projects. So it's not clear to us that over a life cycle of a 30, 40, 50-year project that a delay of a few months is necessarily going to endanger anything.
So I'm assuming the team that's going to be working on all three of these properties is the same team, same conglomeration of team members, whether from the Department of General Services, Finance, or other offices within the administration, right?
Our real estate services division will be working on it. So we will have that, but we will have different team members leading each of those projects.
Okay. I'm just trying to think, if something is stalled somewhere, can that same team that's working on a project move over and be working on something else just for time-saving purposes? But I'm getting more into the weeds now than I probably need to at this point. But I'm just trying to get a sense of what can be done to maximize productivity and at the same time maintain accountability of the legislative process being involved in every step of the process, approving the project. So, and I don't know if in the past oversight committees, ad hoc oversight committees have been put into place where there's a legislative body that is tasked with staff to work on a project as a working group after the budget approval process is done, so that group ends up approving. So this is something that I'd be happy to, this is going to be an ongoing conversation, so I'd be happy to talk to you more about.
We can definitely look into that and get back to you. I'm not aware of any working group on that level. I know that, say, for example, one of the proposals we have for the capital annex, which is unique, is that we will be working more closely with the legislature, but I don't know on the typical cap outlay if we've had a working group throughout the whole process. We'll get back to you on that.
I just think that it's given the opportunity of having assembly members and senators for a longer period of time in their position now, rather than moving around between institutions, you have folks in a place where there could potentially be the same number of individuals working through, even as the executive branch changes hands during the course of this. You will have continuity in the same potential members from the legislative side working, or at least there being some kind of a offsetting small body within the legislative branch that kind of serves as an oversight group. That oversight can happen within this committee as well, but during the time when this committee is not hearing or the budget committee is not hearing. That was the idea. Question? So going back to this is a pretty big area, so, and I think I'm very excited because it creates a lot of opportunity. I think it also creates a lot of opportunity for Sacramento as well, because of the movement of these large pieces that allows there to be better utilization, maybe also, of not only the space for local purposes, but maybe allowing the state to enhance its holdings in the process as well. If we are going to be consolidating certain agencies, and there is going to be the potential of space being available, are there thoughts about what the state can do with those pieces of properties in question, whether it's, like we've talked about, for example, a parking lot that'll better serve housing the employees, the state employees, and or something that, well, at some point the state can even potentially benefit off of utilizing for renting out for private purposes in the immediate area.
Right. That's a great question, Chairman. So first, as far as the properties, could we better utilize the space that we would vacate? And we think we can. So that's part of our stage 4, where we identify there are a number of buildings that we can vacate. And the question is, do we build new buildings on top of those? Do we make them used for parking lots or other uses? So that's something that we would definitely consider. There is a shortage of parking in the downtown Sacramento area. We understand that. And we do really commit to the extent possible, fitting into the larger community and making sure that our buildings aren't just vacant in the evening. So if we can have mixed use, that is a great benefit, and that's one of the benefits of having a cash on hand as opposed to having this as a tax-exempt bond.
And so going back to the finance component now, is there, and I apologize, I'm going to go back and forth, but is there maybe a hybrid of being able to sell bonds at a much lower rate because you have a cash reserve as well that you can benefit from? And so you reduce your costs drastically over the course of the next 20 years because you have the cash as well as the...
What we've done in the past was to cash fund the design phases. Typically, the design phase is, 10, 15% of the total cost. So it doesn't really bring down the financing costs, but it's something that we have done as a hybrid approach. One of the things to piggyback off of what Director Kim has said is the mixed use. If you want an example of what we could do with the lease revenue, you could look at the East End, where there is a very small mixed use component, but it has to be predominantly government oriented. And so the cash funding would allow you to do things like an entire floor of, the ground floor would be retail.
Restaurants.
Where you could, yeah, exactly. And so there's other benefits besides just the financials. But yeah, I don't believe we've done a hybrid approach for, say, because you could cash fund a portion. We have done things where we've cash funded a portion of the construction. For example, say a UC project where UC had some funds. We get those funds before we sell, and so you can lower the amount of lease revenue bonds, the caveat being that you have to have that money in hand before you sell the lease revenue bonds because bondholders need to know that you will have enough to finish it. So anything where we used a hybrid approach, it would be at least a partially pay-go where you would have to have that money in hand in order to downsize the costs of the lease revenue bonds that would be used. And again, using lease revenue bonds for government buildings does add a lot of tax nuances and use restrictions. So.
Okay. Okay, for now, we will be holding any target, before I complete this part, any target timeline of when there's a desire of seeing the shovel in the ground for this? Is that too soon to comment on, or?
Well, we do have a schedule, and it's very, very preliminary. But we're talking about, for example, for the new resources building, the construction may start sometime in fiscal year 18-19. For the new capital annex, we're talking about construction sometime around 2021. And for the replacement for the Bateson building, I believe we're talking about, let's see, also in 1819, is that? 1920. Oh, 1920, I'm sorry.
Okay. I hadn't noticed. Thank you.
No, that's all right.
Thanks for pointing it out. Very good. This is something that we will definitely be working on and talking more over time. At this point, we will be holding this item open, but we can discuss the central plant capital irrigation project.
Yes, thank you. And I believe Miles Burnett, our Deputy Director for Administration, along with Faizi Porcini, will be discussing that item. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Nazarian, and members of the committee. I'm Miles Burnett. I'm Deputy Director of Administration for DGS. First item up, and beside me is Faizi Porcini. He's the branch chief of the Project Management and Development Branch for DGS. First item up, Central Plant Capital Irrigation Project. This proposal requests $1.692 million lease revenue bond funding to provide a reclaimed water system to reuse cooling tower blowdown water from the state's downtown Sacramento Central Plant for irrigation water at the state's Capitol Park. I know we're kind of running slow on or low on time, so I'm going to keep this brief. So I'm going to hand it over to you if you have any questions on this particular item.
LAO?
Yes, thank you. We're recommending that you reject this proposal. We, in reviewing it, we're concerned that it doesn't appear to be a cost-effective project, and we looked at this in two ways. First of all, with respect to how much water would be saved for the investment proposed, we found that it's a relatively low amount of water, 3 gallons per dollar invested. Many other water-saving investments actually yield much more in water savings than proposed, such as even just residential turf removal projects and other projects implemented by the state to conserve water in state buildings. The other way we looked at it was a more traditional payback period, and there we found that while there are net savings on an annual basis for the project, the payback period is 166 years by our calculation, which is, of course, much longer than you would typically expect for most capital projects, where you like to see a payback within a much shorter period, certainly less than, say, 30 years.
Thank you. And the finance?
Finance supports this project. We had originally brought this before the JLBC in December as a scope change, just to get back to the kind of the standard project process as SPWB. At that time, the JLBC thought that it would be better proposed as better dealt with as a BCP, so we submitted it in the governor's budget. We do understand that the cost savings are not the ultimate driver for going forward on this, but we think that the project is worthwhile.
Okay. So a quick question that I have is, how does this impact the master plan for the Capitol Park?
Basically, Mr. Chairman, the master plan has not been worked out. We're presently working on that master plan. The plan for this is the recycled water is going to be used for irrigation.
Okay. I'm sorry, you said that the master plan is being currently worked on?
Basically, it's been worked on, but it's not complete. And it's been
How long is that going to take to complete?
Well, it was initially part of the DGS program, then it was taken and given to the historical Capitol Park, and they've been working on it. I'm not exactly sure what the date on that is. But okay. It's out of our control now. It's not part of DGS programs.
Okay. Okay. I'd be interested to hear more about that, and also what needs to be done so that we can get that moving as well.
Okay.
So,
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Please.
How long will it take to pay off the $1.6 million in lease revenue bonds?
25 years, that's our estimation. That's typical bond. That's the savings that we have.
And just to follow up, these bonds were already issued. They were issued as part of the central plan, which was issued in 2009. So we are currently making debt service payments on those bonds, whether or not we use those proceeds. Just a matter of thought.
Okay, thank you. We'll hold this item open for now. Thank you. Next item is the cap and trade expenditure plan, energy efficiency for public buildings.
DGS requests a one-time augmentation of $30 million from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and ongoing funding for 5 permanent positions beginning in fiscal year 2016 to support activities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in state buildings. Funds will be used to accelerate and expand the existing DGS statewide energy retrofit program. The energy retrofit projects to be developed and constructed are estimated to save 20% of each facility's annual current greenhouse gas emissions. And to answer any technical or more detailed questions, I have Howard Sachs, who is the program manager or program director for that area.
Thank you.
Hello.
Would you like to make a statement or any comments?
Well, no, I'm here to answer your questions.
Okay. LAO?
Sure, thank you. We didn't have any specific concerns with this proposal. We noted it is building on an existing program, which by all accounts is working pretty well and will clearly reduce energy use and then ultimately reduce in state operating costs for those facilities. It's probably worth mentioning for the committee's sake that our office does have more general comments on the administration's cap and trade expenditure plan, and our main concern there is with the level of detail the legislature has been provided. Right now, for many of the proposals, there's not a lot of detailed information on what the level of greenhouse gas emission reductions are likely to be for each of the projects proposed, as well as what any co-benefits, whether that's reduction in or improvement in air quality or reduction in water use or what have you. So we are recommending, as part of our bigger cap and trade proposal, that all departments be required to provide that information to the legislature.
Okay. Finance? Okay. And it seems like this is something that should be part of the larger cap and trade discussion. So we'll hold this item open as well until those discussions have occurred. Next up is the Human Resources Modernization and Workforce Planning. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good. Yes, this is Estela Gonzalez. She is the HR chief for DGS. This proposal requests a $511,000 augmentation from various funds and 4 permanent positions starting fiscal year 16-17 to meet the goals in the strategic plan for a reduction in accounts receivable, to properly supervise and support specialized HR technical staff, to meet increased workload demand in the training unit, and to develop a recruiting position. It's important to note that these positions, by and large, will work on internal DGS activities, so they will not result in an increase in our fee rate. We do service about 18 external clients, but most of this work, if not all of it, will be based on DGS activities, so it will not relate in a fee increase.
This is an item that I think warrants approval and for us to take a vote on, but since we don't have a third person temporarily, we'll hold it open, or we can make the motion and a second and then just hold the vote. Second.
Nazarian?
Aye.
Allen? Cooper?
We'll hold that item open until Mr. Mullen or Mr. Allen joins us back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Last but not least, I know my colleague's favorite topic, Mercury Cleaners Site Remediation.
Yes, we're back yet again for another year of this. DGS, this proposal requests a one-time general fund augmentation of $2.14 million in fiscal year 16-17 for continued testing, cleanup, and monitoring activities related to the former Mercury Cleaner Site, a state-owned property located at 1419 16th Street in Sacramento. As I noted, this is the third year we have been up in front of this committee. This is an ongoing project, so this is really the third year of the project. And with me is Jim, who can excuse me, who can speak to any details. He's the branch manager over that area.
Thank you. Please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, like Miles said, this is an ongoing project. We continue to work closely with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. In the last year, we've installed monitoring wells. We've used soil vapor extraction to deal with the source of the contamination area. And we continue to work in conjunction with the Water Board to most efficiently and effectively remediate this site. So I'll kind of open it up for questions if you have any.
Okay. LAO?
We didn't have any concerns.
Finance? Thank you. Anyone else Mr. Cooper, have any questions? Okay. This is also something that should be approved as budgeted. Is there a motion? Second?
Mr. Nazarian?
Aye.
Allen? Cooper?
Aye.
Mullen? Wilk?
And we'll hold that item open as well
Thank you,
until
Mr.
someone is
Chairman.
able to join us. Two final items left. One, the final on the agenda is the enhancing of procurement cost savings for state departments, fiscal.
This proposal requests an augmentation of $670,000 in 4 positions in fiscal year 16-17 and an additional $1.26 million in 8 positions in fiscal year 17-18 from the Service Revolving Fund expenditure for expenditure authority to support acquisition workload that the Procurement Division is expected to assume due to enhanced cost-saving opportunities and procurement arising from the implementation of fiscal. And I want to make really clear that this is not fiscal implementation. It is the after effect of implementing fiscal and the workload that will be created because of the statewide procurement module and the data that will now be there to enhance procurement. And to speak more in depth about those issues, I have Eric Mandel, who is the branch manager over that area.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I thought you were going to be making a presentation.
Well,
Do you just
I'm
want to
open to any questions you may have, and I can
Okay.
elaborate as you need.
At this point, I don't have any questions on this unless somebody.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Fantastic. Second.
Nazarian?
Before we take a vote, finance or LAO?
No.
Great. No public comments?
Nazarian?
Aye.
Allen? Cooper?
Aye.
Mullen? Wilk?
Great. So that completes the agenda item with the exception of the vote only item 6, issue item 6, transfer of government claims program to DGS.
So the 2015-16 budget process included approval of to shift the government claims program from VCGCP to DGS. DGS in that year, the current year, backfilled the difference between the cost of the program and the revenue that was anticipated to be raised through DGS's filing fee and their other revenue source. Not DGS, I mean VCGCB's other revenue source. This is the second part of the program. It would actually shift the bodies, the program in whole, to DGS starting July 2016.
Okay.
With me, I have Kim Hunt. Let me. When it comes to DGS, we will put it in the Office of Risk and Insurance Management, known as ORIM. What they do is very similar to what the Government Claims Program does. In fact, we have a claims system now that we are already modifying to be able to integrate the government claims program's workload. And so it is a very good fit in ORIM. This is Kim Hunt. She is the branch manager over ORIM, where that program will reside.
Thank you for being here. Do you have any comments?
Nope, just here to answer questions.
Okay. LAO?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're recommending approval of the shift. This is just a continuation of what the legislature began last year. We do, however, have a concern with the proposed trailer bill language, the portion of it that would eliminate the current charge to state departments to pay 15% of cost of approved claims. We think there's some evidence that the implementation of that fee has resulted in a reduction in the number of claims filed against the state, and therefore is probably worthy of maintain what could be an incentive for departments to be more careful in how they manage their claims.
Finance?
Tamara Johnson, Department of Finance. We continue to support the administration's proposal and have no concerns.
Okay. At this time, I'm inclined to hold this item open until we come up with trailer language and bring it back again in front of committee at a later time. So with that, we have 2 or 3 items at this point that we need to have a third vote on to be able to gavel down. So we'll give it a couple of minutes until some of the members join us and we can have a vote. Otherwise, we'll hold those items open as well and place it on a vote-only calendar at a future time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.